Hi everyone, you are watching Simply SCAdian, no title required. I am Zoph, joined by my fearless co-host Lucas. Take it away, Lucas.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Simply SCAdian, no title required. Once again, the mission, as ever, is to highlight those folks in the SCA who may not have achieved their peerage yet, may not be looking for it, may be trying to work their way towards it, but they have something valuable to add to the conversation. And while we love the folks that have achieved rank amongst us, we really want to showcase those people who have a phenomenal knowledge base in their own right, and give them a voice and give them a platform. We want to hear from you about those people that we should talk to. And again, it's all walks of life. This show has exposed me as a relative newbie to so many different types of things in the SCA I didn't even consider. We all know there are fighters. We all know there's Bardic, but we've had brewers and vinters and singers and research enthusiasts, and you know what, we came to know a friend of ours who's in the SCA, involved in the SCA, but not even really, but doesn't really play the game. And we had a very nice conversation there too. So anybody you think we should talk to who can enrich the conversations that we have in the SCA. So make sure you hit us up on the Facebook page if you would like to be on the show, or if you have an idea of somebody you'd like to see on the show. Fill out the questionnaire. Please make sure your suggestions are from anywhere too. I'm from the East, Zoph is from the Mid Realm, and we get a lot of folks from there. But we'd love to spread our wings and see what else we can get on the show, wherever other kingdoms we can hit. Tonight, my prompt went away. Tonight on the show, we have Liam Pippin Vaughan. He is a musician and nerdy stuff enthusiast in North Carolina, just beginning to branch out into the medieval gaming, improv, comedy, acting, and musical performance. He plays more instruments than he can count and cares more about Star Wars than anyone probably should. We're definitely going to get into that tonight. And so, Pippin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much. It is an honor. I was flabbergasted that y'all wanted me as a guest, and I'm very, very, very honored by the opportunity.
No
Um,
problem. We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, totally. Of course, I know you. You disclaimer: mom bias is coming in right now. My eldest child is really good friends with Pippin. That is not why I asked Pippin on the show. I've admired Pippin from afar for a long time, but talking with my eldest reminded me that there are some really cool younger people in the SCA who we should not miss out on. We've already talked to one, and this is our second guest who's a second generation Scadian, and that's exciting. So let's start off with how did you find the SCA?
um, it might look a little bit like, I don't want to say when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much, but that's about as close as I can get because my father and mother, Effin Walt Whistle and Honor d'Anjou, were involved in the SCA when they started going to college at NC State when they were, 20, 21, 22. They met, I think it was at an SCA event or near, surrounding the SCA, sort of. Um, and so that has been a consistent hobby of theirs throughout the last 20, 30 years of both of their lives, and by extension the last and only 18 years of my life. So um it's kind of unique experience, being born to the SCA. It's wonderful because not only are you born into this amazing hobby, which I love so much. If you can't tell by all the, I've got medieval tapestries that my mother, painted over there, and all kinds of stuff around me. But um, it's really one of the funniest things that I'll get is that I will go to an SCA event and we'll be vending. We'll just have our little merchant stop up, and I'll be, taking a shift over for mom or dad for a couple of hours, and someone will walk up to us and they'll say, "Oh my God! Oh, Liam Pippin, hi! I I'm blank. It's so nice to see you again. I knew you when you were an infant." And I would go, "Hi, I don't. It's a pleasure to see you. Because there's just so many, and especially F and Walt is so very outgoing, and so he knows so many people throughout the SCA, and they've all interacted with me, like maybe babysitting me and my brother at a Penzic, making sure we don't die when they've exhausted themselves with classes and whatnot. um but there's so many, I get that experience so often, and I'm still workshopping the best way to approach it, almost, of just like, well, it's very nice to see you.
Yeah, probably
There's
about as good as you can get. Um, Go ahead, Lucas. I was ready to jump on you, but it's your
oh,
turn.
No, it's fine. So I guess like one of the questions I would have is that so you're raised. I have children of my own. So there's a point at which you have no say over where you're going.
right.
So you're coming to this event, like that's what we're doing today.
Yep.
Did you obviously you enjoy it, but was there ever a period of like, this is what my parents do, and I would much rather not do this? Like, was there ever that moment for you, or have you always kind of been intrigued by the process and the people?
I think now I don't know if this applies to everyone at all, but it's almost been linear for me. Whereas the older I get, it's almost an exact correlation of the older I get, the more I enjoy, the SCA in general. But like the fact that that's applied throughout my early life, like uh, uh, when I was an infant, obviously I wasn't, was barely conscious for most of the events, but going up to like 12 years, 13 years old, I'll be sitting there with a Game Boy Advance playing Pokemon Sapphire the entire time. And when you're 12 and 13, your only thought is, what is the way that I can make it so that I can play as much Pokemon Sapphire as possible? And so obviously, the goal there was not engage in, learning about history or enjoy the actual being in the moment of the event. It's just, when can I get to the next video game? Um, but I'd say, the switch almost flipped at around 15, 16, where I just started, I put down, a device or a phone at an event, and I just sat there for a moment, and I went, maybe I should really just try to appreciate what's here. And then that's a little slippery slope, and eventually you're, begging your parents to use the car to get to a coronation event, even if they're not going.
Um, so one of the reasons I asked you is because you okay there? All right.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Was that you had posted about your new album.
Yes.
So I want to talk about that.
Of course. Well, what would you like to know? I mean, what seems to interest you about it?
Well, I've only listened to one song. I mean, tell me how this came into being, your love
Oh
of
man.
medieval music, and then it turns into putting out an album.
Yeah. So the album, so for context, huge D&D nerd, big fan of tabletop role playing games. And a lot of my school friends are big fans of like alternative systems, like Shadowrun and Fate and Tune and all kinds of. They like to explore the RPG world, and so they found this one Discord community for an RPG called the Wild Sea. Um, and it was in open beta testing. It was very public. The developers were very interactive with their community. Um, and so I look into this community of this post-apocalyptic fantasy setting, of this really abstract cool RPG setting. And I was sitting down playing guitar one day and just recorded this little cool affected lick and sent it over to the writer and said, hey, this, I was making this and this just reminded me of your world, so I made some art about it, and I thought maybe you would appreciate it. And so Felix Isaacs, the author of The Wild Sea, gave it a listen and sent it to his publisher. And the publisher said, well, we're starting a Kickstarter soon. Why don't you just commission him to make some music for the Kickstarter? to get people really involved in the game, because at the time they were pouring a lot of money into all of their art. So all of their like visual art and all of their music and book design and all of that, they tried to really focus on that to get people super engaged. So I went and made their Kickstarter trailer music. Um, and they liked it so much that the author just went up to me in private and said, I think we want to make a soundtrack. And I said, a soundtrack for a tabletop role playing game? And he goes, yeah, I want something that people can listen to while they're playing, but instead of them just making a random Spotify playlist, have it be an official soundtrack. And I said, never heard of anything like that before. Yes. And so it was a really long project because and that was when I was around all that first started happening when I was around, I think, late 16 years old. So this is also a junior high school student who is very involved with, a theater program at the school. And so time was very limited. And so it became almost a year and a half, 2-year project of, creating tracks. Felix would send me paragraphs from the book of places and people and sounds that he wanted made, and saying like, I want something to really capture the sound of X. I would send it back to him. He would be like, that sounds pretty cool, but I think the vibe would more shift this way. And we'd go back and forth for about 2 years. And eventually, when the actual game released, when the Wild Sea released digitally, the full PDF of the game, I had enough tracks to put together an album and package it and release it. But so there are about 16 tracks on the album. It's called Songs of the Lignin Tide. Um, but I could even go right now into my FL Studio folder and show you I have about 45, half-baked songs.
Mhm.
Because when you have an entire book of, it's just so intricately written, where every character and place and story is so interesting and so unique. It's like a gold mine of artist inspiration. Um, and so I've been thinking about potentially asking them if I could, use the branding to maybe just make another album on my own without being commissioned, and produce more music for the world of the Wild Sea. But really, really, really just dream experience, kind of, just especially for like a burgeoning artist. Uh, uh, just an amazing opportunity. And,
That's
and
wonderful. I mean,
yeah.
how much input and feedback did they give you? I mean, did you have like a lot of dialogue with them, or did they just kind of like, we love it, that, yes.
Um, that was about half of the time. That was what I got back. I think one time I had sent something to Felix, and because it was this one paragraph. It's Bellico's coffee barge on the album. It's this one little area where this mushroom being with 8 arms and walks around this boat on the wild sea that just produces coffee, and it's just this tiny little silly unique thing that just popped out in my head so much. And so I said, I'm going to make a track about that. I sent it over to Felix, and he goes, I really hadn't thought about that paragraph in about a year. You just full shaped that for me. You created the mental image. And to hear that from the author of something you admire so much was just, I shaped part of his view of the world. Oh, it was wonderful. Um, but yeah, he was very. Whenever I asked for any feedback, he was ready to write paragraphs on paragraphs. Um, because Felix Isaacs is that man has a lot of passion for anything that he does. So very admirable, and just great boss.
Nice. So I see behind you we have quite a few instruments. What got you? I mean, and for people who know your dad, it's pretty obvious where your love of music came from. Your mom and dad, excuse me.
Yeah.
Um, But what was your first instrument that you ever played?
It's funny. I was going to ask the exact like where did that journey start? Like what
Yes.
was the first like that one thing?
It's interesting. My grandmother, Marilyn Wienand, is she's a doctor of music performance. Her husband was a doctor of organ performance, and she's a harpist, but is an amazing pianist. And she started giving me piano lessons at around age, I want to say 4 or 5. So I took pretty regular piano lessons until I was around 16. So that's what is that? Around 12 years of piano lessons. I almost sort of lost interest in piano towards the end of our lessons, just because we were doing a lot of learning classical pieces, and Debussy, and a lot of Mozart, a lot of Beethoven, a lot of just the big name classics. You got to know this, you got to know that. Um, I personally don't have a lot of love for classical music, and when you're playing an instrument, the biggest thing for me is that it has to be fun. And so when you're not playing something that you like hearing, you're not having fun. And so I wasn't forced, but I was really wanting to branch out and find what I really enjoyed playing. And so my dad plays a guitar to accompany himself singing, and my mom as well. And he would leave his guitar around the tent at SCA events. And so I believe it was a tournament of Emir, that I just decided, hey Dad, can I pick up your guitar and just learn some stuff on it? And he goes, sure. And so I spent the entire event playing the chords to Leslie Ann Levine by the Decemberists, just one song. Um, but I really enjoyed the guitar, and so I started playing more and more of that. And as time went on, I'm getting older, so I'm becoming more and more enthusiastic about the SCA, which means I'm starting to listen to more medieval and Celtic music that a lot of SCA people are very involved in. And so when you hear a lot of that stuff, you go, I like hearing that. I want to play that. So I start hearing Celtic stuff, which means I want to play Celtic stuff, which means I go out and get a mandolin and a mandolin and a mandolin and an octave mandolin, and start playing guitar and dadgad just to sound more Celtic. So it was really this explosion around 2 years ago of just like, I want to play this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and it started stacking and stacking and stacking.
Can you give the rundown of what you play?
Okay. Uh, the string family of instruments, because it's not as impressive as it seems. The string family of instruments, you play one, you pretty much play all of them. So really any sort of mandolin, octave mandolin thing, bass guitar, guitar. I've started to learn more penny whistle. Like I've got one of those really nice low D whistles. I tried harmonica. Um, the one thing that I haven't been able to really sit down and super enjoy is bowed instruments like violins and cellos. I have a violin, and I have a medieval fiddle called a revic, but I just, I haven't been able to find what I enjoy playing on those
Mhm.
yet. Um, but yeah, pretty much anything with strings, I will. Oh, I love the accordion. I love
I,
the accordion.
I saw you play. That's why I was like,
I'm an enormous fan. It's immensely fun to play. Um, I think that's all. I a lot of percussion stuff as well, but that's also sort of in a family of its own. You play one, you sort of get it.
So when you made the album, I know I promise we'll get back to SEA stuff, but I'm curious how many of your instruments did you use? How many tracks did you lay down? How much layering did you have to do to make the album? Each song on the album.
It varies from some tracks. I think there's one called Summer Spit Market. It's just this very flowery, summery, nice, summery track. But uh, uh, songs like that, I will just have a little guitar or mandolin part that I'm noodling on, that I find that I like that part, and I'll just lay down a track and maybe two other tracks, and I find that the simplicity of that is just it works. But then, so that'll be like a two or three tracks total. Add percussion onto that, but there's some tracks like I wrote a little shanty that's Effenwaltz actually sings on Anchor to Root, where I had probably, uh, God, I want to say 60 to 70 separate labeled tracks of, because I recorded myself singing different harmonies around, you know, 20 times for each line, just to really get the whole like ship's crew feel, sound like a real crowd is singing. Um, but I'd get up to like 80 on some of the tracks, because yeah, oh man, it's really you can sort of tell that I went on an almost journey of discovery on recording music throughout the album, because again, it was a very long project and you learn a lot in those 2 years. And so some of the recording you can tell is done much more amateurly than other recordings. So I might have laid down, 5 tracks for one harmony line or something like that when I only really needed two, or something else. So sometimes I ended up doing more work than I needed to, and realized that later in the process,
Hmm.
and just went, I've made it already.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have I mean, how do you record? Like, do you have a room in the house that's designated as studio? I mean, like, what kind of software do you use? Like,
Um,
how do you really put that together?
Yeah, I actually, you're in it right now. Actually, this is one of the I have a
Okay.
microphone right here and one right here, so I can record stuff in stereo. And this is I'm in my bedroom right now, and this is actually where I do all my recording, because all the fabric on the walls and the fact that it's not the biggest room provides for actually quite a lot of sound, acoustic treatment, like natural acoustic treatment. So it's nice. There's not a whole lot of ambient noise in here. Um, and for software, I use, it's really simple. It's just FL Studio. It's really accessible. A lot of new people use it. A lot of older people use it. Um, I've gotten shouted at to use Ableton before, but I find that FL Studio works, and it gets the files out, and it gets the tracks in the right order. So, um, yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else about my recording setup? I mean, I guess the only real other thing that I've got here is all of my keyboard stuff. I don't record on a piano. I have this tiny, it's so tiny. It's so tiny. It's like a little baby keyboard. This tiny little 20 key thing right here just plugs right into the computer. Yeah, really simple setup, but
Hmm.
it works.
Nice. Yeah, I noticed your sound is really rich. It's really great because there's no
Thank you.
echo happening at all. It's beautiful. The
I
the
appreciate
the
that.
recording person I am, former radio geek.
That's high praise.
Sound. That's, one of the things when I was working in radio, I would give people a chance to work with me for free if you were in the SCA and wanted to put out an album. And I still do it, which is I don't do the production. I just help you clean things up. I advise you on how to, because my biggest complaint in the SCA is people who put out albums that they haven't done the work to make them sound clean. And it's never going to sound as great as what I would play on the radio station, of course not, but you can still treat your listeners, the people who purchase your CDs, to music that's of a good quality. And
Yeah.
there's a there's a balance between mom's, I'm in the basement, to something that has a true wonderful sound. So I really appreciate that about what you've done.
Well, I'm very honored by that. Thank you. I one thing that does bug me is that almost every recording of real medieval music that I found, and it's so hard to find ones that aren't, will be, song like ecclesiastic, like things like Stella Splendens or things out of the Carmina Burana or anything like that will be so very reverby. Like
Oh,
it's like they want you to be in this monastical hall in this great big open space. Sometimes I just want to listen to the instruments, and when I
mhm,
it that bugs me to no end. Where it's so big. Sometimes you don't need the sound to be that big.
agreed. Absolutely. We'll have to geek out about music some other time, you and me. Um, Lucas, your turn.
So, getting back to the SCA, part of the part of the reason we're here, and I feel like we should talk about it a little bit. Um, when like, all right, well, what's your favorite event? I mean, you've been to tons of them. So what's something you come back to year after year? You're like, yeah, that's the one.
Okay, it's gonna be cliche. It's Penzik. It's Penzik. It's the Penzik War. It's just the penultimate. You get everyone. You get 2 weeks of it. And I'm very lucky that my parents have been able to take us to Penzik for the full 2 weeks almost every year of my life, and I recognize that's an immense privilege because not a lot of people get that time off. But dad is able to work, in our little camp trailer at Penzik, the hours that he needs to make the count off for the vacation time. But uh, uh, it's such a wonderful. There's so much to experience. I've been going for 18 years, and I've only experienced probably 1/40th of it total. Just to think there's so much. You can make every experience different every year. Um, and I'm sure you get that a lot, but it's hard to compete with something that maximum.
Yeah.
It really is.
You traveled. I mean, now that you're old enough, and now that you're doing your own music and whatnot, do you travel to a lot of the different places to play on your own? Do you?
So as of late, I have been really looking to get out more and participate in more of the events. I tend to the only pickiness that I have about events and other happenings in the SCA is that I'm very bothered by the concept of when you're in a community center for an event, or like a church. It's I'm very atmosphere oriented, and it's very hard for me to get immersed in the mindset of I'm really living the Middle Ages. I'm really getting immersed into it when I see a basketball hoop right there, and the whole thing's linoleum tiled, and there's fluorescent lighting, and so I tend to really aim for the campsites and the campfires and really anything that I can really get the atmosphere at.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yuzo.
No, no, no. Go ahead. I can see that there's a question burning in your brain. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I mean, again, was I know you played at the we refer to it as the event that shall not be named, because some people are a little sore about a thing happening that wasn't Penzic, and that's okay. Was that the first time? Because that was my first experience with you, seeing you play with your folks. Do you play on your own at events, or do you usually just play with your parents? Like, what do you do?
For a while there, when I really started to get into playing, mandolin and whistle and all that, I felt very much I enjoy accompanying musicians very much. That's where I get a lot of the fun of playing in bardic circles and such. And so naturally, I sort of clung to the parents as well. I don't I don't have to go out there and do it myself, and I can just tell them I'm tired and want to go to bed whenever we want to go. But definitely as of late, I've been really relishing in the opportunity to go out and perform by myself and stuff, and and actually knowing material, and being confident in performing it is a huge plus for that kind of thing because uh, uh, even when you're shaky on the lyrics and stuff, there's no experience I can equate to performing something that you are proud of in front of people who will appreciate it as much as you do, and make an effort to appreciate it, and maybe even join in and just share that moment by yourself with other people, instead of relying on someone else to share it. If
Can you
that
give
sort of
us an
makes sense.
Can you give us an example of like that was a cool moment? Like I got to play this here for those people, and that was just amazing, kind of thing.
Um, Oh man, well, I can actually take you back to like 3 days ago. I was at Kuhn and Edelheit's coronation. I was camping with Lions Keep, some amazing folks, by the way. They run the tavern at Gulf Wars, the Green Dragon. They're amazing people, amazing people. But we had a sort of a mini feast while feast was going on, and they were asking me to entertain at the feast because they had a musician and they wanted music, and so I was just playing, and I was playing "Son of the Sea" by Ken Therio, because I believe that I truly believe that to be one of the best songs ever written, just because. Um, and oh, you all right there, Zof? Okay. I was just making sure. I don't want to like. I want to make sure we're not witnessing an emergency.
Oh, I just went down the wrong way. Go ahead.
I feel that, but Marion, one of the heads of the Green Dragon there, started singing along on harmony of "Son of the Sea." That's like my favorite song, and such a beautiful harmony, and they all knew it. Uh, uh, and it was just such a like a. That was the first time I've really been out there and just been asked to perform just spontaneously, just because, and and B, really just gotten to share something like that and have someone sing the harmony with me, and it's just a beautiful moment. Just a beautiful moment. That kind of thing is unparalleled. Mm,
So you're also getting into Commedia, I hear.
very much so.
So how did that come into being?
Uh, if you well I you probably know, if anyone watching knows Lady Sophie the Orange, who's incredibly involved in any kind of comedian improvisational performance in the SCA, in Masters Hill in particular, is practically a next door neighbor of mine, lives down the street, and so we have been family friends for years. And she is incredibly enthusiastic about a lot of things, but Commedia dell'arte is among the most enthusiastic. And so she has been for a very long time trying to get me and Effin Walt and even my brother to participate. And so eventually, this youth commedia program started up at Penzic, which is ran by forget the last name, but Lady Monka and Lady Kale the Leafy Green, who are amazing people, absolutely wonderful people. And so that was really sort of being in an environment with other people your age, and actually being given the opportunity to learn from people who have so much experience, like Kale, or Lord Anton, and just some amazing performers who came in and taught the kids at Penzic, uh, the basics of improv, the basics of performance, acting, character work. Um, but so yeah, that youth commedia program at Penzic, as well as the insistence of Lady Sophie the Orange, is sort of combined, and have gotten me very interested in continuing to do that sort of Italian street theater improvisational comedy stuff.
Are you part of Il Totolo?
I have been asked to perform in them with the next Penzic performance coming up. So I'm
So Il
which I'm
Totolo is a commedia troupe of graduates as well as the instructors from that youth commedia.
Oh my god, they're amazing. Oh
They're
my
really
god, they're so cool. Oh my god, it's like meeting Michael Jackson. It's like playing music with Michael Jackson.
it's
Sorry.
very yeah. It's the first time I saw one of their shows, and I will admit my bias. I think my child is brilliant and amazing, and Rowan did a great job. but everybody did a great job. Like they were all just so incredible to watch, and it's one of my favorite shows to see every Penzic. So, plug, go see Il Totolo at Penzic this year.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be great.
Oh, it's such an honor. Oh my god. Okay. Sorry, I have to gush a little bit. Um, man, did I interrupt myself with something? I tend to do that.
No, I interrupted you to ask you if you were in the troop.
Italian words.
I can't Italian today. It's Hungarian or nothing. Um,
I lose my train of thought very easily. I'm sorry if.
all right, so the big question that I do want to ask is what's it like growing up with famous parents in the SCA?
um. Uh. Uh. The If you ever take a walk with F and Walt, this is advice. If you ever take a walk anywhere with F and Walt at like Penzic or a camping event or another event, and he stops to talk to someone, realize that will not be the first person he stops to talk to. That is one out of 90 people he will stop to talk to, so you should just probably keep going because your trip will take 4.5 hours if you wait. Um, uh, uh, it's it's been a little it's been a kind of strange going into especially going out and foraying into a lot of the performance stuff solo newly by myself is that uh I'll get because a lot of people know Evan Walt, so I'll get introduced as, oh, that's Evan Walt's kid, and I'll be sitting there like, but but
Yeah.
but me though, I'm me though, and so there's always a little bit of a struggle to really sort of get people to see like that's a unique identity, that's not just someone else, um especially because like it's been nice to Evan Walt and Nor haven't been in a lot of the comedy performance side of the SCA. And so it's been nice to sort of break into a new community, almost like a new sub community that's sort of untouched by the parents' relationships and other things going on, and really been able to sort of meet people as me and really get to know people as fully just me. It's been very nice. Been very nice.
Yeah, see that's why I don't do Commedia because I want Rowan to have the experience that you have. Her mom, who started the Known Role Players, who's the big theater laurel. No, Ro fell in love with Commedia, and I said, I will not perform Commedia now because that's Rowan's world, that's Rowan's universe, and I would rather let them have that than me tromp on in my diva-ish way and take over the world.
That's very noble. That's very self-sacrificing.
Well, but I'm sure your parents are the same way. I know that both of them would be amazing at improv.
I would love to perform some improv comedy with with both of my parents more.
That would be
I would
awesome.
love to.
Yeah, I
But you
can I,
do
I
like
can attest to that because you guys riffed off each other so well at that live performance.
at the event that shall not be named. I mean, it was really, really enjoyable to watch that performance with the three of you. So, does your brother, is he not into any of this?
So, Aiden, for context, is so he has been, going to college on and off for the last couple of years, going to jobs on and off. He's not super interested in the whole SCA thing, as he's a very online person. He's not soft spoken. He's not introverted, but he's just very centered on he he wants to be a game designer for a career, and he just got a job teaching code to kids, which is awesome. Um, but because of that, he tends to think about everything I do has to connect to my career in some way, and
Mhm.
so he spends hours of every day, programming for games that he's planning to release and stuff like that. And unfortunately, the SCA doesn't really have uh, any connections to video game design almost at all, unless you count board games and medieval board game design, but that barely applies. And so he hasn't really been able to find something that resonates with him. I but I hope that he continues to, you know, go to future Penzix and other events and tries new things, because uh, uh, it would be lovely to see him as enthusiastic about some of this stuff as I am.
Yeah.
Just because I'm keeping an eye on the folks at home that are
Yeah.
joining us
All
and
right.
watching.
What are our
Oh.
comments?
Hi.
So you might want to hook up with Ursula in the comments, because apparently they need to show you the video of your parents in Flavio's Fortune. Effin apparently played Arlecchino, and Aner played Flamia. So
Did he?
that is a video that exists somewhere.
I
So
will ask them about
work
that.
out work out a deal.
Is this Ursula Quillen? I think I
Yes,
camped
yes,
I camped
yes.
with her at the last weekend. Hi, Ursula.
Anything
Yeah.
else that we have questions, or just generic?
Just people commenting, and Ursula said, "Oh yes." So yeah, that's
Nice. Um,
uh,
so wait, okay, so we have one other question that we have to discuss that we talked about earlier here. Favorite Star Wars movie? Which one's the best in your opinion?
Oh, okay. 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 I'd say I'm one of the people who really just finds Revenge of the Sith just the best, because now say what you will about the prequels.
I'm going to say that is a bold statement. I'm not
It's
saying
so bold.
I'm not saying you're incorrect or anything. I'm just saying that
I've
is a
got reasons.
bold. No, and
I've got
I'm
reasons.
happy about that. Go ahead.
No, so say what you will about the prequels. Script writing, not the best. The acting, there was some bad directing choices. There was some bad acting choices. My favorite thing, especially as someone who was born watching the prequels, you know, when I was you know, a child, and B, big fan of video games, is that something that I really like about the prequels is the world building. Is that Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith all do such a great job of expanding the universe, expanding the galaxy. You know, finding out more about uh, Naboo and Geonosis, and especially the Clone Wars show coming out of those prequels.
Well, those are premier cartoons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a giant fan of. Sorry, huge fan of Clone Wars. Revenge of the Sith was so great to me because it was awesome to see every single little bit of Palpatine's plan come together into that final scene, into those final scenes, just seeing everything fall into place. And while I don't necessarily agree with some of the acting or dialogue choices, I think the storytelling was well done. I think that it's just very compelling the way that Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship you know, fell apart, and his attachment to Padme turning into almost a hatred for Padme towards the end in a way. And I don't know, it's just, I find all of those things that they all just culminated in Revenge of the Sith, uh and just the battle on Mustafar. Just but yeah. And there, I also, you know, I play a lot of video games, and a lot of the online gaming community is very enthusiastic about the Clone Wars era. And so I, you know, find a lot of stuff very interesting about, you know, all those B1 battle droids and B2s, and you know, Captain Cody and Captain Rex and all of I just am a huge sucker for all of that, and the era that it fits, and the fact that Revenge of the Sith follows all of that happening. I'll be the first to admit the Clone Wars isn't the prequels. I know a lot of people say that the Clone Wars isn't the prequels, but it makes the prequels so much better for me, personally.
Yeah, I think Dave Filoni did a good job of just kind of fixing a lot of broad mistakes in the thing. I was never a prequel hater.
I'm gonna guess your favorite might be what, Return of the Jedi, or no, not Return of the Jedi. Hmm.
I mean,
Is it?
don't get me wrong. I was like a 9-year-old boy, like just completely like holding my stuffed Ewok, like
Now,
killing that. I can do that movie verbatim, but
now, are we talking Star Wars Saga or Star Wars movie? Skywalker Saga or just Star Wars movie?
just Star Wars in general. Yeah,
Rogue One.
that is perfect.
That's a great movie. It's an
It's
awesome
the
movie.
best. It's the best. But okay, you will never. It's very hard to guess Lucas's, and sometimes
It's not. It's
sad.
it is the most. It is the safest answer in Star Wars.
Sad.
Like I wish that mine was something that was an amazing thing, but it's Empire. That is the Empire Strikes Back is the safest. It's the
I mean,
safest
it's
thing to like in
great.
Star Wars. And
It's
and
just
and I
great.
wish and I wish it wasn't like I wish I know I stand with tons of the fandom when I say that, but it really just kind of there's just so much in that movie to like.
Yeah.
Um and because again, everyone will I have if I have any strong feelings on Star Wars, most of my strong feelings, and that, I'm not saying that as a negative, are with the new three.
Hmm.
Because I believe more than anything, the fandom, and sorry if I'm calling my fellows out, I believe the fandom screwed up the new three because all anybody wants to do. I have a very dear friend. Well, I'm not going to call out on this because it could get back to them because they are an SCA who hates Return of the Jedi simply because it's kind of a rehash of A New Hope. You know what I mean? It's another Death Star. And he was like,
Yeah.
that's all they could think of, another Death Star. And I'm like, okay, I see your point. I don't agree with it because my progression as a fan is in Jedi, where it was like when I was a kid, I was like, more Ewoks, like just that's all I wanted. And then as I got older, I was like, that lightsaber battle is amazing. It's still not as good as the one in Empire,
No,
but it was
that's the
amazing.
best.
And then especially as a fight combat, as a stage combat guy, I want fights that tell stories, which is why I can kind of beat up the prequel movies because they have really pretty fights that don't say a whole lot. You
Yeah,
want to talk
that's
about
actually a really good point. Yeah.
problems with dialogue. Fights are dialogue too, and whatnot. But the new ones, everybody wanted to beat up Force Awakens for saying, "Oh, it's just a rehash." And I'm like, no, it's reintroducing you to the community and kind of showing you something new. And then they went left and said, "We're going to show you something new and different. You're probably not going to like this." And then they didn't have the courage to see it through.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem is they did.
Last Jedi has a lot of problems in it.
Yep.
I didn't really mind the treatment of some of the characters in it, and then they tried this bizarre course correct,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, and you just didn't explain anything. I am often fond of saying, I know this has become my rant about Star Wars. I'll stop, but I just needed one scene in Rise of Skywalker to make it better. The scene where Kylo Ren confronts Palpatine, like, okay, he's back. Weirdly, he's on like floaty harness keep him alive machine. And that's my problem. I have no idea what that thing is. I just needed like 5 minutes of exposition of the Emperor, like, okay,
Yeah.
you remember when I went over the railing? Okay. So I went over the railing. And then as I went over there and get me from there to there. I was like, because I think Disney's big problem is they're assuming people are consuming all the various medias.
Mm-hmm.
To put the
But not
puzzle
everybody
together,
is.
and we're not, because they're trying to create something that happened organically for I'm going to say for my age group, really, because by the time I got to be in high school was when all the extended universe books were coming out,
Right.
but they were all after the fact. We already had the core movies, and then these authors were going, oh, well, there's some space here to navigate and write a story, so I'll fit this story in here. Instead, with these new movies, they were going, just leave a big blank there and we'll write a book about it. Or worse, we're going to put Palpatine's message to the universe out on Fortnite. They reference it in the movie.
I didn't
and
know
I was
that.
like, where the hell was that? And my son leans over to me and goes, that was a Fortnite event. And I was like, No, no, I'm out. I'm out. I'm done. Like
Done, yeah.
I
All
got
right, all
nothing.
right, all right. SCA.
That's it.
Two more questions.
Oh,
Where do you see yourself in 5 years in the SCA, Pippin?
where do I see myself in 5 years? Um, I will have written a couple actual original songs that I'm proud of. I will have. I want to say that I think that I want to make a name of just really make a name for myself in at least the East of just like of someone who does a lot like multiple performing. It's not just being a bard or not just being a comedy comedia performer. Um, oh man, and I want to have at least a couple more garments that I've made by myself with the help of Anor, but I just want to have more stuff that I can really I made this kind of thing, But I know that's not a very deep answer, but I mean, I really can't. It's hard to say just because I'm so young. There's so many different things that can impact. I mean, I'll see a picture of something cool one day and I'll be like, "All right, all of my interests." So, it's
Yeah.
very uh as impulsive as I am, it's very possible that I might have a completely different sphere of interest in the SCA. So
Have you ever tried the Marshall thing at all?
I have never once touched the Marshall thing. Yeah, never once. So, but I mean, you can probably tell by looking at my arm. If I got hit too hard, I would probably shatter. Um,
But don't you do
but
dagger hair with your dad?
I've gone to like one dagger here thing with my dad and that was like right before COVID-19 pandemic. So they stopped doing anything
Right.
for years. I might get back into it. I'm
I
thinking
sort of
about it.
feel like I seem like a creeper because I know so much about you, but I've been friends with your dad and mom for so long.
No, yeah, and that and Facebook.
Right, that too. All
It's
right,
just so
last
easy.
question. Last
Yep.
question, Lucas. Come on, let's do it.
Okay, so where can we do better as a society? Where do you think we can improve? What can we learn?
I think that and this is a limited perspective. Obviously, I'm a kid. I don't do a whole lot of the partying stuff, but from what I've seen is that a lot of the SCA, which on average has gotten older over the years, I feel like a lot of the SCA uh, uh, tends to be people that don't necessarily understand a lot of the, and maybe it's just a generational issue, but a lot of the older generation of the SCA doesn't seem to really view a lot of the stuff that some of the newer people who are coming into the SCA are bringing up as issues, whether it be social issues or even like political or economic things. A lot of that stems from, I think, just the general well, it's fine for me because I mean, a lot of us in the SCA, like we have time and money to put into a hobby that we can, go to events and camp at or spend, a week or two at Penzic, off work. Um, and so a lot of us in the SCA have some mighty fine resources. And so some of the newer people coming into the SCA who don't necessarily have those resources or are talking about the people who don't, people who tend to have a lot more resources tend to respond to that in an almost dismissive way. But I don't think that it's really something that can be improved through just the SCA. It might just be a societal issue,
Mhm.
and uh, I again, I'm not a prophet or a poet or a politician or a scientist, so I don't really know the full perspective on any of these things. But and I say the only other issue I have with the SCA, and this is another issue that's everywhere, is that people need to stop. Can I like do low level? Can I low level
Yeah.
curse?
Yes.
People need to stop shit talking. I see like every time I'm in an area where there are performers or anything like that, someone walks away and then instantly as soon as there's a moment of silence, God, oh she's so annoying. That kind of thing. It happens everywhere. It will happen forever. It continues to happen. I just can't stand it. And it's the heart of so many issues in the SCA.
Mhm.
It's the heart of so many miscommunications and so many missed passing up of whoever and a shunting of whoever and not giving whoever credit. But
No, it is frustrating that so many of us in the SEA are insecure, and those insecurities come out as envy of other people, which means people put you down because they're envious of what you're doing instead of celebrating what each other is doing and being inspired by that.
yeah, and that's really the whole at the core of the SEA, isn't it? Just to celebrate the knowledge that we're bringing to each other and like, check out this cool thing. That's awesome. Check out this cool thing. It's inherently positive.
Yeah.
We don't need to make it negative.
I'm sorry, I started snickering because I thought of just going, yeah, it's bad. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. It's just 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 right back.
All right, and on that note, Lucas is out.
uh,
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
sorry. It's been a long day.
Long day. Yeah. All right, take us out.
Do we want to talk about next week, in 2 weeks guests, or do we want to keep them in suspense?
No, because I don't remember his name. He seems like a really awesome guy. He's from the East Kingdom. It starts with an F. It could be Frederick, but
Oh
he's
yes.
really cool. And I
Yeah.
can't wait for us to talk to him and get to know him better.
Okay. All right, everybody. You have been watching Simply SCAdian, no title required, with our special guest today, Liam Pippin Vaughan, who is so wonderful and so articulate. We wish you so much success with the album, and many more to come, hopefully. And on behalf of my lovely co-host Zoph and myself, Lucas, thank you for watching Simply SCAdian, no title required.
I'm gonna stay winking.